Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a video on the 5 best junglers for patch 7.5. In this video we'll take a look at the 5 strongest junglers from a solo queue perspective, with also taking into consideration the types of champions that I think you should be playing to get that juicy elo. Basically what I mean by that is that these champions won't necessarily be the 5 top champions that you'll be seeing in the LCS or something like that, but as far as solo queue goes, I do believe these are the 5 strongest, most efficient carry champions for winning as a jungler. And of course, as always, I won't just be telling you guys what champions are strong, we'll show you how to play them as well. So to kick things off, we'll start with a champion that you may not be expecting to see on this list, Olaf. Olaf has always been a fairly good champion for solo queue. He's got 3 of the most important things that you do need to be carrying as a jungler. He's got decent CC, good strong early game, and he's easy to play. Olaf may lack some hard CC that other junglers might have, which means depending on the situation, his ganks aren't quite as strong. But generally speaking, if you catch someone with their pants down, you can't get away from Olaf. Now, it's not just because his ganking is pretty good as to why he has a good early game. His damage is absolutely ridiculous. Essentially, because you can throw an axe at someone and then pick it up and throw at them again and keep doing it until you run out of mana, you can do an insane amount of damage and make it impossible to lose any 1v1s. And the fact that you do have this really high base damage in the early game, it means that when you build full tank afterwards, which is what you'll be doing as a jungler, you still have a decent amount of damage but then transition into something that becomes unkillable. Which not only has the very obvious benefits that being unkillable brings to the table, but it also means that he's even easier to play combined with his really easy mechanics. So when you're playing Olaf, you will want to make use of the fact that you're very strong in this early game, like I've said. But when you do have your blue buff up as well, you have one of, if not the fastest clears in the game too, so make sure you use that to your advantage. And because spamming your axes is an AoE ability, he is one of those few champions who, despite their damage in the early game, can take away the chickens without being cock-a-doodle doomed. If you want to invade the enemy jungler or if you want to gank, they're both good options. Just make sure you're having some pressure in the early game. And when it comes time to fight in the mid and late game, make sure you're just charging down the enemy AD carry with your ghost and your ultimate. Max your Q when you're playing Olaf, take runes like this, masteries like this. You can go further, you can go Grasp the Undying, or you can actually experiment with the new Bond of Stone as well. And for your items, as long as it's tanky, it's pretty good. If you do want to get a bit of damage as well, Black Cleaver is a really solid choice. The next jungler on this list is Elise. Not only is Elise the pocket pick of seemingly every single EU pro player, she's also a very solid solo queue jungler as well. What Elise brings to the table is arguably the best at ganking in the game, at least in the early game. By level 3, Elise has a full kit to work with when it comes to ganks. She has a lot of damage, but also really reliable CC and quite an impressive gap closer. Essentially, Elise is a really solid jungler to pick if you want to have really high impact early games. She is also rather remarkable in the 1v1s as well. She's not the best duelist around, but if you can get the jump on someone, you can chunk someone down to 50% health before they even get out of the stun, and more or less they'll have to just run away from you. On top of that as well, Elise does have the benefit of being a magic damage jungler. Most junglers in the game are focused more towards the physical damage, and because the way the meta is right now, with lethality being so strong, and of course junglers being so AD focused, it means that you can pick Elise and add a bit more variety to your team comp as far as the type of damage being dealt. Elise does also have other benefits. For example, she can transition into a good assassin later the game goes on. She can also be a bit of a bruiser too. But generally speaking, the biggest reason why Elise is such a strong solo queue champion is because of her phenomenal early game. So with that being said, to give some advice on how to play her, quite obviously, make sure you are doing a lot of ganking in that early game. The way you want to initiate your ganks is to walk up to your target in human form, throw a few auto attacks on them, especially if you have red buff. This is really useful because it slows them down, and that then makes it a lot easier for you to land your cocoon. But even if you don't have red buff, you still want to initiate in human form, because then you can get as close as possible, throw out as much damage as possible in that human form, and then the closer you are to the targets, the easier it is to land your cocoon, or you just force the enemy to flash away from you early on, and then you can follow up with the cocoon after they flashed. Again, all things that just help increase your cocoon accuracy. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that so much is because as soon as you have landed that E, the stun on the enemy target, they're pretty much a free kill. But anyway, pretty standard runes here and your masteries as well. Thunderlords, more damage, more early game pressure. For your build, these kind of like hybrid AP tanky items, generally speaking, are the best ones on Elise. But some tank items as well by themselves are fine too. The third champion on this list, no surprises for this one. He is probably, in my opinion, the strongest jungler around right now. It's Graves. There's a lot to say about Graves as to why he's so strong, but it pretty much all boils down to the fact that he just does a crap ton of damage. Graves is a champion who doesn't really lose any 1v1 matchups either. So at any point in the game, you can do whatever it is that you want to do and do it very efficiently. For example, he clears the jungle really fast, which means not only can he power farm his own jungle, but he can invade the enemy jungle and take things away really quickly as well. He can fight the enemy jungler, bitch slap them around a little bit, show them who's boss. And on top of that, his ganks really aren't that bad. Yes, he does lack good CC, but he has enough damage really to make up for it. And last but not least, his late game scaling is pretty high because he just gets more and more damage, and eventually he will always threaten the one shot on a squishy. He can pretty much do everything except have a cigar. Which, by the way, is pretty bullshit. If we can have a champion in the game who is not only morbidly obese, but abuses alcohol constantly, why the hell can't Graves smoke a cigar? Anyway, moving on rapidly. If you want to learn how to play Graves, my best suggestion, and this is going to be a complete sellout here, is to watch some of my gameplays that I've got on him, because I did learn how to play him, and I think I've got some pretty good commentaries to explain what I'm doing as well, so that might help you. But generally speaking, it's kind of hard in theory to explain in a short amount of time, like here, how to play Graves, because he can, like I say, do pretty much anything. So as long as you're having some kind of pressure, that's fine. Even if you're focusing more on farming as well, that's not necessarily bad, because like I say as well, you scale. So yeah, you can do a lot of stuff, but just make sure you're not AFK, because then your team will fall behind more often than not, and that's not good. Standard AD, attack speed, rune page, Thunderlords is probably your best mastery, though I've also heard whispers of the new Bond of Stone mastery being pretty good on Graves as well. Not sure about that one though. And for your item build, if it's got AD, it's good. If it's got lethality, it's good. If it's like a hybrid damage tank item like Black Cleaver, more Malmortius, Styrax, it's good. Hell, even crit items are pretty good on Graves, so you can pretty much just do whatever you want. Before we move on to our penultimate champion here today, guys, I want to thank you for watching this video so far. I hope you're enjoying it, finding it useful. And of course, cheeky reminder, if you are enjoying it, that thumbs up helps me out. But anyway, getting on with our fourth champion here, it's Mr. Bug Boy himself, Kazakhs. Probably no real surprise to hear Kazakhs on this list as well. Kazakhs, Graves and Rengar have been the holy trinity of junglers in the past few patches, all three of those being extremely strong. In a similar fashion to the other junglers on this list, Kazakhs is very good in the early game. He's a champion who does ridiculous amounts of damage to people if he finds them by themselves. This means that in the 1v1 against other junglers, he usually destroys pretty much any matchup. There are some matchups which are a bit hard for Kazakhs, most notably other champions on this list. But generally speaking, if you find someone isolated and they face check you, you're gonna win that fight. But it's not just fighting the enemy jungler where Kazakhs is strong in the early game. His ganks are pretty solid as well. His whole kit makes his ganks fairly good. He does have that gap closer, he does have those slows in his W and his passive. But to be honest, the reason why his ganks are so good is because of a combination between his kit and his ludicrous damage. Kazakhs' ability to find people and delete them off the map is by far his strongest asset, and probably the biggest reason as to why you'll pick him. So whether that is like those 1v1s in the jungle like I mentioned, or later on when you're finding people split pushing by themselves, overextending a little bit, or in team fights when someone walks a little bit too far away from safety, Kazakhs is really good at punishing those people. But of course, as with any champion who has a lot of damage, he clears the jungle really fast as well. So not only does he clear his own jungle really quickly, he can then hop into the enemy jungle, take things away really fast as well. And because Kazakhs has superior DPS to isolated targets, it means that he takes enemy buff camps really fast, he takes the dragon really fast, he takes Baron really fast. Essentially, his neutral objective control is really bloody good. He also has an uncanny resemblance to the Masked Rider that you guys might remember from seeing in Power Rangers like all those years ago. I think he had his own spin-off series as well. Like, maybe it's just me, but whenever I see Kazakhs, I see the Masked Rider. I don't really know why that is. Maybe it's just me. I don't even think he was intended to look like a bug. They just, for some reason, gave him bug-like qualities. I think it was meant to be an alien or something, I don't know. But you know, it's cool to pick a champion and then feel a little bit of nostalgia every time you play him as well. And last but not least for this list, it is... Oh, wait, no, it's not Rengar, no. Oh, it's Hecarim. Yep, Rengar actually did not make my top 5 for this patch. I think Rengar is a very good champion still, but he's received so many nerfs, and as the meta is kind of changing, adapting and evolving, we have seen Rengar fall down on that priority list. If you're a good Rengar, he's still definitely worth playing. But on top of that as well, I do think that Rengar is quite hard to pull off compared to the other junglers on this list as well. So for that reason, with his relative strength not being so high and the fact he's harder to play, I'm sticking Hecarim on here instead. And hey, it's not like Hecarim is a weak champion by any means. In fact, I think he's one of the hardest carry champions on this whole list. Hecarim is a champion who, much like Olaf, as we mentioned in the beginning, has decent CC, really strong early game, but also really bloody easy to play. To be honest, maybe I shouldn't say that Hecarim's early game is really strong. Like, it's definitely serviceable and his ganks are really simple to execute, but his damage in the early game and specifically his 1v1s do leave a bit to be desired. However, as you start getting into that mid-game territory, Hecarim starts popping off really bloody hard. He like unlocks a new tier and just becomes really hard to deal with, because you build that Triforce, which gives you crazy damage, and then you just go full tank, so you become unkillable as well. Hecarim is not only a very easy champion to play, which makes him great for solo queue, but he also is by far, in my opinion, the champion who has the most disproportionate amount of tankiness compared to how much bloody damage he has as well. And on top of that, he has really solid initiation, which means he can start plays. And in solo queue, being able to start plays, being able to initiate plays is a really useful tool, because it means you can control when you're fighting and you can pick optimal fights. But anyway, if you want to be playing Hecarim for the early game, you can gank a lot, but do avoid the enemy jungler and farm up if in doubt. As soon as you've completed that Triforce, and especially after you've got your Cinderhulk as well, you can really start to just do whatever the hell you want to do, because you're pretty strong at that point. Focus down enemy squishies, use your ultimate to either initiate plays or just get a massive AoE fear off. And make sure you're always positioning behind targets before you hit them when you have your E up, so you knock them out of safety. And likewise, if you can, place your ultimate behind targets too, so you fear them out of safety. But yeah, that's all we want to say for this video, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about it down below in the comments. If you have any suggestions for champions that you would put on this top 5 list of champions that you think were omitted, things perhaps you disagree with. But yeah, of course, you can subscribe to me for more videos just like this one, more Jungle League of Legends guides. You can leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. But most importantly, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.